Welcome to a new story from our usual tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video with your friends. My family is simple. My parents were humble people, and I am the eldest among my siblings. They were uneducated, but they were aware and conscious. My father worked in tile installation, and my mother was a housewife. According to my mother, our circumstances were tough due to the lack of job opportunities, so my father moved to the city. From the day they moved into that house, strange things started happening. Since they arrived in the city, the house given to them by the owner was old and cheap, and he didn't raise the price because they were humble people. The house was full of people but had been closed for a long time before they moved in. My mother spent the day alone in the house while my father worked outside. My mother was responsible for all the household chores. She cooked and took care of the house like all women. She even baked bread at home without going to the bakery. One time, while my mother was sitting and kneading, something strange happened. I will tell you what she saw. She was sitting and kneading, and suddenly she felt something strange. Later, she told me that she felt something calling her and said to her, "When you knead, leave a little yeast for me." At that moment, my mother felt scared and started saying, "I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed devil." In the evening when my father came back, she told him what happened. He said she might have been imagining things, but she was the only one who witnessed what happened. After that, things started disappearing from the house. Not just the yeast, but many other things. My mother had a very beautiful voice, especially when she recited prayers or sang hymns. She would always sing while working in the house and remembering God. In the countryside, she would sing at weddings if there were traditional songs, and all the women testified to the beauty of her voice. One day, she was singing in the house, and suddenly she heard clapping behind her. Not just one person clapping, but as if a group of people were clapping. My mother stopped singing and quickly went to see what was happening, but she found no one. Then she started smelling the scent of agarwood, in the house. Once my father told her that he saw a woman whose upper half was visible, while the lower half was dark, and she left the room without opening the door. My father didn't want to scare my mother because she was pregnant with me at the time, so he didn't tell her what he saw. After I was born, things became clearer. My father saw a woman one day carrying 2 children in her hands, and she told him, "We live with you, and we are with you in good and bad times." At that moment, my father felt scared and went to bring a religious scholar to recite the Quran in the house. When they read the Quran, they told him there were spirits in the house, but they were peaceful and wouldn't harm anyone. They just asked him to keep the house clean, not leave it closed, and avoid loud noises and disturbances at night. Over time, I learned not to shout in the house, run, or leave the bathroom door open. I lived by these rules even though I was young, and these things were normal to me. But as I grew older, I no longer saw those things I used to see as a child. My father's business grew, and he started working with 2 masters. That year, I started school, and when the teacher asked me about my siblings, I would tell her I had siblings and describe them in detail, because they were always on my mind as young children. One time, my father invited a friend to dinner at our house. After dinner, the man fell on his face and started screaming in pain in his leg, saying something had bitten him. He knew there was something strange in the house. After a few months, my father suffered a big financial loss due to a scam, and I remembered the dream I had, but I was young and didn't understand its meaning. I grew up and started hanging out with bad company, becoming a completely different person from the quiet child I used to be. My life turned upside down, and I no longer saw any of those things I used to see in my childhood. This is my story. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like,